Welcome to Woman Talk, where we keep it real, real. My name is Tara. Please join me and my girls, Dee Dee and Promessa, as we have difficult and informative conversations. Our goal is to uplift and encourage you. Please go with us on this journey. Welcome to Women Talk, where we keep it real, real. I'm Tara Ray, and I'm here with my girls, Promessa and Dee Dee, and we are going to be having some conversation about being women. And so there's a lot floating around out there, and we just want to get into some conversations about it. So, hey, Dee Dee, hey, Promise, what's up?
Hey,
what's been going on? This is so controversial. It makes me like pause. But I think we need to have the conversation because, we just need to have a conversation, and not because everybody else is having it, but just being us, being middle-aged women, where we are, our thoughts. I think we should just lay it out there. So I think what came to mind, there's been a lot of talk about what it means to be quote unquote strong Black women. And I think that translates into all women of color because we share the same experiences. And so it's been a real negative connotation, but there's some positives in it, but there are also negatives. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Just the first thing when you hear that strong Black woman or strong Latina woman, like what comes to your mind when you hear that?
I mean, for me, you think historically, like that probably comes from, you think about even, your grandmother. You think about your grandmother and how, and even your great grandmother, if you knew your great grandmother, which I did, I knew my grandfather's mother, and they were just strong women. It was like no matter what they went through, no matter just no matter what happened to them, what they went through, they felt like, or they just did it, that they had to keep up the I'm strong, that I'm just a strong person. No matter, they would go through so many things and they would still be strong, and they wouldn't talk about it. They wouldn't complain about it. And they would just keep moving. And I think for me, that's where I see, as far as in my case, a strong, Black woman is that no matter what they went through, they didn't talk about it, which is also actually not a good thing at the same time, because I think when we are moving to be so strong, that when we're going through things, it's difficult for us to show our weakness at that time, because we want to keep up the I'm a strong person, and that at no time you're supposed to be weak. You know what I'm saying? When you're still being strong, you're just showing emotions.
But I think, I don't know, because I hear you, but I've seen this in extremes to the negative and extremes to the positive. So I remember, I will never forget it. It's two things about this that really kind of shake me up. And I think I've shared this with you guys privately, but now I'm going to share it publicly. Somebody might get mad at me, but I got to be okay with that. But I remember when my grandmother passed away, one of my aunts thought it was a good idea to make the women pallbearers. And I'm like, it don't make sense to me. And I've always been the one who, when my mom wasn't present, they put me in as a stand-in. So my name is there. Now we got on short dresses, high heels, who carrying a casket? But they really were going to try to do this. And I remember asking, like, why did she think this was okay? You know, and someone said, because I guess she wanted everybody to know that mommy being my grandmother raised strong women. But is that what it means? Because I don't know that you have to do that kind of stuff to show that you're strong. I mean, if you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And then that very same day, I remember I was talking to one of my younger cousins, and he's very successful in his career. He's educated. And I remember him saying, if the women in my family are strong like this, I want somebody about right here. And that has just always stuck with me, because I'm like, what is that? Where does that come from? Why do we believe that is how we have to show that we're strong? And not saying we can do something that a man would do, but just that, I don't know, that I don't need you kind of thing. is what it kind of feels like. And I know that was not anybody's intention, but it kind of feels like that. But I think that that too can come from a very different place, if that makes sense, because there are things that happen to us where we got to sometimes make a shift and we have to take a stand and do things like you were talking about. Maybe if it's a time that you've been single, or where you dealing with somebody who really don't make you feel all that safe and secure. So you got to like shift and move. And we weren't taught, oh, how do you communicate through that? Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? So it's a whole bunch of different things. And I'm talking about it that could be considered to be more negative. And then there are more positive things where you get creative, you're willing to try things, you go out there, you know how to make it happen, So I don't know. I just feel that through this process, sometimes women of color get a bad rap, if that makes sense. Because it's like, it makes us, we can't do nothing. Like, we really, if you're too strong, it's an issue. If you're not strong enough, it's an issue. How do we find the balance? And then who teaches us the balance? I don't think it's been a book written on it. And if it is, I don't know the title of it.
No, you're correct. Because I just, it's so crazy that you just said that, because I, all the things that I went through when my son was in school. And I just ran across an email, and it just bothered me, because whenever my son was wrong in school, I checked my son. But whenever somebody at the school did something that was inappropriate, then I checked them. I didn't check them in front of my son. I didn't do any of those things. But a person sent an email and said that I was disturbed. It said I was disturbed. I just read this email yesterday. I forgot all about it. It said I was disturbed because I would come in accusing them, and I never did, but I did stand my ground. When they were wrong, they were wrong. But I felt like I went out of my way to never do it in front of my child. So I'm thinking that I'm doing the right things, but I made sure that they knew that they were wrong. And so for me to be considered disturbed because I was protecting and defending my child was really weird to me. It was just different. I was reading the email to somebody and they said, they called you disturbed. I said, disturbed. I didn't do anything. But I was disturbed because I stood my ground and I didn't back down. So I just think that they don't allow for sure women of color to voice their opinion. This voicing your opinion can be, you're out of line. And that's where I don't think that it's right. And for what you were talking about, Tara, but see, that's kind of like a little different. I don't think we should ever do like when women can be strong, we can be strong. And then if they want to say women can do what men can do, okay, great. But I think sometimes you can overstep that too, because I know it's been times that my husband would be like, can you let me do that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to do that. So, why did you do it? Why is it, if I wanted something done, I would just do it. And he would be like, you need to allow me to do that. So I'm with you on carrying the casket, girl. If they would ask me to do that, I'd have been like, no, not that strong.
And I remember distinctly my husband saying, babe, move out the way. Like, we both like, what is happening? And again, meaning no disrespect to anyone.
Right.
It's just like, the thought process, but that is a thought process that is ingrained and it comes from somewhere, and so us digging to the bottom of where it comes from is very important. And I think that it's important, like, because I was hearing what Promise was saying earlier, and it makes sense, but then part of me feels like we have to tread with caution when we're discussing roles. I'm trying to be very careful with how I say it. Because many times as women, because all of us, I don't care what nobody say, I ain't never met a woman who, if you got the opportunity to be taken care of, is not gonna jump on that. Like, whatever. Like, I don't care what nobody say. They can put up whatever. If you got the opportunity to be taken care of 100%, emotionally, physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, you're going to jump on that. But what we do based on that desire, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, is we assign that role to people who are not capable of fulfilling it. So then what we do is dumb ourselves down, or we like, not even that's, we're just like, well, because this is how you're supposed to be, I'm going to assign that to you. But what if you're not equipped? And that's where the trust factor comes in.
Mhm.
And for me, I get fearful. Like, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm gonna put my everything in you, and you no. So I think that it comes from to a fear of not being stable, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I don't know if that makes sense. I keep saying that. But what do y'all think? And promise, I spoke about what you said. So what would you say?
So what we were talking about before we started recording was we recently had a women's conference, and it was all about women empowerment and supporting one another, in business. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a nonprofit. So I'm all about supporting other women, lifting them up. This is what Women Talk is about. We want to encourage you. We want you to get to where you want to be. And then we want to challenge you to go to that next level, because sometimes as women, even in ourselves, we're like, you know what, I see myself here. But sometimes as I'm moving into what I believe I'm called to do, I see myself here, but then at that time, then somebody else pushes me to go like to the next level, to even go beyond what we see. And that's what it's about. We can empower each other. We can support one another. But what about sometimes we don't see the potential that we have, other people see it. So I want that sisterhood where sees that's something that I don't see, and push me there in love and in, words of encouragement and support. So what I was saying, as we go to that next level, as we rise up, to never belittle our men. So, the word says, they're the head of the household. So as we go up, we should never look down on that. And I think about that because we're all strong women here, but the characteristics of even the Latina being and what how we're labeled as a woman who's single, who's got, this going on and that going on in a positive way. They're like, oh, them Latina women, they blah, blah, blah. But I've learned in my strength to keep that gentle part of being a woman. That is so important in how I speak, and how I talk with people when we're having a conversation. And I've said this before, there's a certain family member, we share on here, we want to keep it real. So I have a family member, I feel that when we're talking, they're talking at me, like they're just talking at me. And I kind of sit back and I'm like, talk to me. Don't talk at me. It makes you, it's like a belittle, you get belittled. So in our strength as being women, to continue to raise our men up. And our producer Ro had said it in such a good way. And I know she ain't about to jump on. But
I'm like, I'm
the
waiting.
masculinity of our men, how she's perfect. Oh, she wants to jump on real quick and say it.
Oh, we never want to emasculate men. Even if we're serving in a space of leadership, you still don't want to emasculate men. Be a woman who is willing to be submissive. Even if you are seen as the lead, men are still the head of the household. So never would we want to emasculate men. One, because our sons are watching, younger boys are watching. And if you want them to grow up to be the type of man you aspire to have in your life, then they need to see you treat other men in that way.
Yeah. Well, she said, y'all, we got Ro on. Hey.
I know. But then,
But
okay.
yes, that is so important.
I hear you. But then the question comes in, where is our responsibility 100% in that? Because again, I feel like that we're doing this, I'm assigning to you something that you really have not earned, if that makes sense. I don't, I get a little.
Yeah, you're gonna have to explain that
Okay.
one.
Ooh,
So
this is
this
getting
is
good,
what I
y'all.
say.
Like, wait, hold
Okay,
on.
this is what I say. I tell young women all the time, don't just look at a mate or look at dating someone or be in a relationship with someone because they can deal with you where you are right now. That person has got to be able to deal with you where God is taking you. A lot of times we miss that part because we either we just want somebody or we really into this person and we hoping that they're gonna change. But potential, that's you can't count on potential. So it's like that's what I'm talking about. So as we aspire, it's like I'm growing, growing, growing. I feel like we need to have somebody that's growing, growing, growing right along.
Mhm.
Or else it feels like I'm growing, then I gotta go do this. Then I'm growing, then I gotta go do this. What? Why is that responsibility on me? If that makes sense. I don't know if that, but do you see what I mean? And so some people, and I remember I know someone who she has her PhD, and before she got married, I will never forget. She was like, "Yeah, I've dated people and this," and she was older before she actually got married. But she was like, "I'm not paying nobody to be my husband. I'm not gonna do that." So it's like and I see it more in the millennials, but in our generation, I don't know if I see it as much because they're on their grind, both male and female. But in our generation, it's like you'll see women like zooming, and then it's like, what's happening over here? And many of them like, oh well, I'll just choose to be single. And I'm like, that I don't know if that's ideal either. So what is it? Where is the balance? And not to tear them down, but how much of it is your responsibility to continue to like build up, lift up? Do you see what I mean?
What's
When does the person take responsibility for their own building up and lifting up?
and this one is a weird one though, because within my situation, we've been together, since we were so young. So we're like literally, I think we kind of complement each other on the level of if, he's just not as social as me. It's just not his thing. But he's definitely like what you want to do and what you need me to do to help you do what you want to do, do what it is you want to do. He just more of that back, anything I need help with, he gonna do it. But he's so much of that back person, but he is that supportive person. Like, this is what is it that you want to do and how can I help you get there? And I think maybe just because of his personality and him not wanting to be in the, and I don't even like being in the limelight. Everybody knows that. I don't like to be pushed out front, but he's even worse than me. He don't even want to be seen. He just want to be chilling and back there. And then he wants to, I don't
Marcus,
know.
don't be just chilling and back there. Marcus have a whole bunch to say.
Yeah, he a mess, but he definitely is, he's just a person that doesn't, I just want to say, well, he doesn't like to be so much in the front line, but whatever it is that we can do, whether we're doing business together, and he's just not, you just don't hear him being that vocal, but we're doing it together, or or a lot of ideals are coming from him, like my t-shirt business. A lot of stuff comes from him. He'll say, well, what about this ideal? So we had opted to just work together and go in business together on that. That's what we have to do. He just likes to sit back and he'll come up with ideals and he'll help with the ideals and do all those things. But he's just a person that, sits back. But like you said, these youth today, they all on their grind. Like, it's just, they all just making it do what it do. And I'm happy to see that, actually.
I am
But,
too.
but Didi, I think the key word you said is he compliments you, right? You all don't
absolutely.
You all don't have to be doing the same exact thing, but it's a compliment to you.
Yeah.
And I am with you, Tara. I am not feeding into someone who is not feeding into themselves. I think oftentimes we look at, well, I'll make up for whatever he or she is not doing. That is not our role, as women. We have to be able to one, be whole within ourselves and understand that we're not operating off potential. But if you see this person striving for growth and striving to be better, we can't say, well, I've already arrived and you haven't, so I'm going to demean you. That is not what, I don't say bring somebody along just for the sake of having somebody. You can be by yourself for that. But what I'm saying is if you see someone that's trying to grow with you, feed into that person. If you're making 80, 90,000 a year and he's making 45, but he's grinding and he's getting better every day, that man is still the head of the household. So you shouldn't emasculate him. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of women who have reached this pinnacle point and they're like, well, you're not where I'm at, so I need to move on. So then it starts to just diminish what we want out of men, right?
Well,
And I think,
oh, I'm sorry, you can go.
I think too that a lot of that needs to come from in the forefront when you start to date, when you're looking at him as a, y'all are talking, y'all are texting, oh, you think he's fine, let me hit him up, oh, he done called me and text me. But where's he at in his life? Is he grinding or he just look good? Like, so many of us get into relationships because they look good, like, but what are they doing?
The old us 40s and 50s, we ain't doing that these days.
But that's what I'm saying. So when you're looking at somebody, look at what they're doing in their life, where are they going? A lot of us have said that, like, where are they going? Don't, Tara, how did you say it? Something, about you and David, back when y'all first got together, how he saw where you were going and he supported you in that, and vice versa. You saw, he had big visions. He's got some things going on even back then, he owned some property, so they might not be where they're at, like where you want them to be at that very moment, but are they going somewhere or are they just like chilling? Because typically how you meet them is how they're pretty much gonna be. I mean, if he ain't, grinding and trying to do some things, whether it's, whatever it is, that's how they're gonna be. If they lay back chilling, like, I ain't trying to do nothing in life, I'm just here, and then 10 years later in your relationship, you're mad because they're just chilling. I mean, that's how you met them. That's how you met them. So
I call it contingency plans, and we'll talk about that. How you build contingency plans
and I
into
promise
your relationship.
And I promise you that Tara has that. Let me tell you, I promise you, because I won't go too far into it, but I remember me and Tara was talking one time, and I'm just, like Tara got that plan for you to grow from where you was. Even if I got you and we were here, as we go along, you need to be doing this.
But if your significant other isn't already doing that when you meet them, don't be mad in 10 years when they're not doing nothing.
I think, and that's my thing, Promise, is that if I feel like, and I'm definitely not saying people shouldn't grow, because people definitely should grow. Mm-hmm. But what I am saying, I'm gonna even go to the field that we all worked in when we met. When you, we have people coming in complaining about somebody that they knew that's how they were. That's how they were for for all the previous relationships. And then they're complaining and we're like, wasn't that how it was when when you got in that situation? So sometimes we do have to be very careful with that. And sometimes you can grow together, but it all depends if people want to grow together. And I think that we were so young when we got together that's just what we did. We ended up growing together, and that's how we, complement each other on that. But it's like, I think people look for stuff these days and they're not really looking for the right stuff. You know what I'm saying? They're not looking at, people are coming in with types, and I'm not saying don't have a type, but when you're so stuck to certain types, then you kind of could be cutting yourself off. I know two people that they married people that were not their type, and they're happy. They're like the happiest that they've ever been, because they were able to see outside of that. Because, part of the type is the looks and the this and the that. So they were able to look outside of that, and they're happy though. They're with someone, that person loves them, that person is helping them grow, they're growing, and they're happy.
what I would say though, not even so much a type. I think if you think about those cutouts on the beach, and it looks like, you know, a family and everybody, but the face is open and you can put your face in there and take pictures. You know what I'm talking about? That's what I think a lot of women do. They just find somebody, they got it set up and they just find somebody who can stick their face in there and just be the person who is there. And that is not, it's not productive. It just it's almost like, what happened here? You know, and you know, we done seen them situations where we be looking at each other. We don't want to say nothing, but we looking like, what is this? What you know? What? Okay.
What
Like,
is going on
what
here?
is what is happening?
If
But
y'all are talking about me, you can say it.
no,
No, but I am,
You've had, you've had some that, but I said something to you.
Don't say some. Don't do that. Don't.
She's had a
Don't-
situation. That's all I'm saying. She's had a situation.
No,
it's okay. I've had some situations, you know, but you know, I you know, that's why we love each other, you know, correct each other and love. Sis, I'm worried about you. What's going on? You know, but that's why I'm saying from the get-go,
you
the
love us
beginning,
now. You wasn't loving us back then. We ain't gonna even play.
I sure was.
She loved us. She just didn't want to hear what we had to say. Because a lot of times when you go into situations that you know you shouldn't be, you already know you shouldn't even be in a situation.
But and not even just to make this a relationship talk, even though it comes down to that, because I'm like, I hate being labeled. And I know, you know, I mean, I'm a mom of boys. There's only one girl. And now we got one granddaughter and another granddaughter coming. So out of all the boys, it's just three, you know what I'm saying? Three girls. So I've always known I've been more on the tougher side, but I don't think that it's like, oh, I'm so strong that because I say all the time, I love to see a man be a man. You want to carry my groceries, you want to carry my bag, you want to open this door, you want to do all that.
And let me watch you while you do that. I mean,
so
absolutely,
you know.
So it's like, yeah, but those labels trouble me because, and that's what I want to shift a little bit and get into the labels and things that we see. So I came up with this term and I called it toxic independence. And what I meant by that is a person who you see who has always had to do everything for themselves in a sense. So they don't expect help from anyone else. So they'll go down with the shit burning. And I know I'm one of those people. I try to work on it, but I go with the shit burning until I can figure out a way to put the fire out, even if somebody is standing there with a hose, because my brain is not trained to see them because I've had to do so much on my own. Does that, you know, I keep saying, does that make sense? I don't know why this is does that make sense day, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, when that happens, it's not that I don't want help. I love help. Help me, but I don't expect help.
But would you have said that 20 years ago? I love help, help me. Would you have said that to a man in your life when you were all about being independent?
No, I got a man right now who do everything I need him to do, and I still don't say it. I have to wait, or he have to notice, because my brain is not trained to do that. But it comes from, and quite frankly, it comes from neglect. It does. It comes from having to do things yourself when you shouldn't have had. I thought about it. I'm like, okay, senior pictures, I bought those. Prom dress, I bought that. Homecoming dress, I bought that. Tickets to this, tickets to graduation, cap and gown, all of that stuff. When that's not ideal. Do you see what I mean? So when you're like that as a kid, you don't expect people to show up for you.
I think
and so
we need
even
to
if
talk.
you have somebody there,
that's deep.
You know?
Yeah. I think
that's why I call it toxic independence. It's not that it's, but it can be toxic. It can make people feel like you don't value them, don't, you know what I'm saying, neither, but that's never the intention. It just happens because that is what you've been used to.
Yeah.
I think
And
what you said
probably-
too about relearning, you know, there's so many things that we learn as we grow up, even, you know, with my mom, you know, bless her, she taught me what she knew, you know, and that was being independent. She worked 3 jobs, she held the house down, she held down the fort, you
Well,
know,
what
but
happened
I've
in
heard,
that? You see what happened in
right.
that though?
Right. So
You know,
yeah,
the
so that's
people
what
left
I'm saying.
behind, there's the neglect piece.
So that's
And
what I'm
it's
saying. So she
unfortunate.
went through the divorce and had to step up, you know, to pay the mortgage, to pay, you know, for what the kids needed. But she started to say, you don't need a man. You don't need a man. So while she's working 3 jobs, you know, trying to take care of her kids. So I grew up with that. I don't need a man. I don't need you. I don't need you to do for me what I could do for myself. So a lot of it is relearning what we've been taught. And it's not that she meant it to, you know, be something negative in my life. She wanted to show me that I could do it and that we would be able to succeed. But I would now I've changed it, you know, with my children to not say that specific line as to I don't need a man. Although I did used to say it very, very much so. It was like drilled into my head. But as my boys grew older, I'm like, man, I'm sitting here saying I don't need a man. And my little 8-year-old son is sitting next to me. What are we teaching our kids when we say that? What are we teaching our daughters when we say that about their brothers, you know, or about their fathers, if, you know, their fathers are in their lives? So for us to say, I don't need a man, and we have boys, we need to be very careful. I don't even say it anymore. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like, that's not something in my vocabulary that I even want to spit out there. So the rethinking, the relearning process of what we've learned throughout our life, and not to say that we can't do it, you know, hold, you know, 3 jobs and hold down the fort and pay all the bills, but to say, I don't need a man in a derogatory way when we have kids, come on, y'all, boys especially.
Or we have to be in that mindset where I know that like Terry, she's so used to doing stuff for herself. And I think I kind of do that too. You get so used to doing things for yourself that it's not that the person wouldn't even do it for you. It's that you don't even take the time to ask the person or let the person know it even needs to be done. I remember not too long ago, we had to go to, I had a dryer in the car from when we were cleaning out my mother-in-law's house. And I had a dryer in my vehicle, and he went to go drop our son off somewhere. And he said, okay, I'll meet you at the storage unit, you know, and we can unload the stuff. When he finished dropping, no, I had already done it. He said, well, the dryer, I was like, well, I took it out. He's like, so you took the dryer? And then he was like, but why wouldn't you even have waited? And I don't, you know, like I said, I didn't even think about those type of things. Even when I come in the house and I'm carrying 100 groceries, he's like, why? Like, why did you even do all of that? Like, all of these people in the house, you getting off work, you got your backpack, you carrying 10 bags of groceries, trying to roll in the house, dropping stuff, because you didn't just simply say, somebody need to come out. I have the groceries in the car. You know, we're not mind readers, that you even have the groceries in the car for us to come out and get, because if he knows I'm at the grocery store, then soon as I'm backing in, pretty much, that I'll see, you know, him opening the garage and then he's out there. But if he doesn't know, and so sometimes you can do that, and you can really make men feel like, you know, like, dang, you know,
like I ain't needed.
I'm
here,
not needed.
So
And
why am I here? Why am I here?
Exactly.
They don't need me. They don't want, you know, and then
And I had
you
to
open up
learn
the door
that
to
too.
that.
I had to learn. I definitely, I'm guilty. Just like Tara, I am guilty. And I am so guilty of it. And I just don't ask for I don't ask for it even when I know. Even I think one time I needed to take care of something, like even to pay something. And he was like, and I mean, he pays what he pays, and then I pay what I pay, but I was short. And then he was like, but why didn't you just say something? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you short, then I still got you. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't just not say nothing and create something worse for yourself. Because now if you miss this month, now next month you need to pay it twice. So like, if you would have just asked for help, I could have just helped you with that, and that would have been it. So we have to, some things we do have to try to program ourselves, but I'm just like that person, like, nope, he pays what he pays, and I'm not gonna ask him for anything else, because then he gonna be like, well, you need to learn how to manage your money, or whatever. Cause I like to shop and buy Christmas stuff, so. But I like to buy little things, but but still, that I could have asked him for the help when I needed it, because even if he has a comment to make, he's gonna do it. So it's just like, we do have to learn. It's difficult for me, even down to carrying groceries. It's just hard for me. I just feel like
I don't want to carry no groceries.
I don't either, but I just
won't ask.
Right. See?
That's what I told you. I'm like,
you just do
and
it.
there's certain things that it's like I know that I don't have, so it's like, okay, I'll do this, like I never have to take out the trash, ever.
Right.
And people think that's a big thing, like that ain't nothing. Look here, that make me, and I'm like, ooh, I'm so glad I don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That don't mean I won't, but I don't have to. I don't have to deal with the yard, outside, anything, so it's like, that kind of stuff. I don't have to a lot of times deal with a lot of inside stuff, but it's like, yeah, but I still, it's like, okay, I see it in concept in a sense, but it's like feeling it is different, because I think that it requires a whole different level, even for small things, of vulnerability, because you've had a history of being let down. And I'm not even talking about in relationships. Like I said, those things that happen from childhood that are just ingrained in. So then you're like, oh, okay. Well, when I needed folks to come through in these areas, they never did. So I don't expect that expectation that you should have, that people who love you will support you and be there for you. And I say it all the time. If somebody loves you, they will respond to your needs. But a lot of times we don't even know what we need, if that makes,
So Tara, you said something about being vulnerable. So the definition, I just looked up the definition of vulnerable. It says susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. What? So, but why, because of the trust issues and things that we've been through in our life, we bring that into the next relationship where we feel like vulnerable. And so it's like we already have the walls up, like, I don't trust you, so you could do X, Y, Z to me. But the vulnerability that we have, again, comes back. I keep going back to the beginning of the relationships. Sometimes, and I'm speaking for myself here, is I went too quick, too soon into a relationship because he was handsome and he was charming and he was all these things. And I was vulnerable at that time. He was giving me what I needed in so many areas. And I don't know, maybe it's for somebody that's going to be hearing this, on the back end or, whatever, but just be careful in who you open your heart to. They could be charming. They could be giving you all these things that you need, that you want, and you let them in, and then it's very, just becomes very abusive, and, all that stuff starts happening. So as we continue, though, to be that strong woman in those times, and believe me, I was a very strong woman even then, but there was that time that I was vulnerable and I let this person in my life because I was open to that relationship. So just to be very cautious when we are in our strength, the weak moments that we have, to be very careful on who we let in at that very, very moment, because in our strength, we're still weak. And the person that we allow in our life at that very moment can be very detrimental. So
it can be, But you know, one thing I learned, and I thought, I've been thinking about, what did Rose say? What did Rose say? Something I've been trying to think about. The other key, and I think if I'm correct, she said this, is that as I strongly feel this way, is that as women, we also have to get in a position to make sure that we love ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Definitely.
going to tell you, if you don't, I just feel like, and this is just me, it's just, then you feel a need. And when I mean that need is that needy piece that I feel like we then put up with any and everything, because it's a need to have somebody there. It's a need, but then also where that need is lacking, is where I personally believe is sometimes is that you loving yourself and believing in yourself. And I believe that we definitely have to have that. You have to have that. Where you just take time to get to know yourself and love yourself. Because for me, I got a relationship so young, I didn't know myself. Do you know what I'm saying? We got a relationship, we had kids. So I had to, during that relationship, figure out the, my childhood and what I had been through, and where I may have felt, if you felt neglected, or if you felt just different things, then you're going to cling on and hold on to any and everything. So I really had to learn how to love me and get to know me, because I feel like once I did that, and he had to do the same. No, men have to do the same, because they've had broken childhoods just like us women, so they have to do the same. But you want to be with somebody that's willing to do the work, because you're going to come together. And I remember we had Stacia on here. That was when Stacia and her husband Ed was on here, and that's what they talked about. They both had been from two different backgrounds. He had come from, his mom with mental health, and she had come from where she was raised with strong women that told her that you didn't need a man. So she was raised too thinking she didn't need a man. Then you come together, this person over here, if they've been taking care of a parent that has mental health issues, then they know that they're used to caring for people. And as a man, he's caring for somebody, that's his mom, and then for her over here, you don't need a man, so you have to learn how to come together, because men can have the same brokenness that we have, they have, you know what I'm saying? The same way that if they felt not needed as a child, or not that something, like they weren't valued, then they're going to want to feel needed as well. And we're all going to react different though. And so I think it's
This is my thing, and not to cut you off, Didi. I'm so into people completing that, like be that. Don't try to be needed, be needed. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to lead.
Right.
So those things come with, like, you got to put your foot down and do it. Yes. And I think that's where it becomes difficult for some people. You got this idea over here of what people say, how women should be, how men should be, what they like, what they don't like. Okay, come up with what you want in your relationship, number one, but then be that. Be that. Don't expect to have that attributed to you and you're not fulfilling that obligation. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Because most of us women, we're very idealistic.
Yes.
We believe the best in people, even when they show us the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. So it's like, okay, if you believe the best in the person, even when they show you the worst, well, how do you rectify it? How do you get to the truth? How do you continue to build? And these are lots of things that we're not taught this stuff most of the time. We're really not.
None of the time.
So it's like,
Deandra, oh my God.
What do you do? And I really, because I'm like, okay, because I feel it saddens me. Like when I think about what my cousin said, and I think he's still single. He might date, but he's still single. He could be building, because he's, very successful. He could be building, but the idea about women that's burned in his mind is that the women he grew up with are up here and he wants somebody right about here. So it's like, then, That's what he's coming up against. It's not, I can genuinely get, now I'm sizing you up. I want to see if you up here or if you right here.
Right.
Like so in us being strong, we've added so much baggage, not even realizing it.
But
To
you
the
know what?
relationships that people haven't even had yet.
You know what though? Even with my guy cousins, I won't say any names for any of them, but I have one that like, I think that so all of the women in our family are pretty much like very just strong women. We're strong. So I have one cousin who his thing is he don't want no nagger because that's where he see the women in the family at. So I think that he feel like he heard enough of that. So for him, he doesn't want it. But then I have another cousin. I'm just telling you, it takes a strong woman. That's, you know what I'm saying? It took a strong woman to come along and open his nose. You know what I'm saying? Because I think because that's what he's so used to in our family is that all of the women are so strong that for him, that's what it took. But then I have other cousins that's like, they dealt with us strong women for so long that, like you said, they don't want them up here to be like us strong. They want them to come down over here and be just a little bit less stronger, but still strong.
But also it takes even like Deandra's marriage, y'all, like with her, Marcus per se is more on the back end, he's more quiet, he's more laid back. It appears that way, but
thank you.
It takes a very, very, very strong man to be married to a woman who is so strong like Deandra. So again, going back to that about our men, it takes a strong man to be with women who are so about empowerment and strength.
To strengthen them. That's where I take issue. So it's not my responsibility to strengthen you, but I also don't have to weaken myself.
Never
so
should
that you
weaken yourself.
Yes.
Feel strong.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like.
But you should never weaken yourself. But I want you to think about it a little different. We're also
But then
different.
how do you know if you too strong? Like, how do you know?
Well, you too strong.
Wait, hold on.
Let me help you out.
Wait, you gotta open up a can of worms now.
Strong.
Because how are you gonna say somebody is too strong? Like, what's the definition of too strong? I mean,
where the mirrors at?
Whatever takes it from being positive to people looking at it as being negative. What's that fine line?
I don't know. Let me tell you, we know David is strong because he putting up with you. And you got he putting up with a strong person and you know how she do stuff. You say something she don't like, she be like, okay. Yeah,
the Bible say agree with your adversary quickly.
You're considered strong. I'm gonna look it up in the dictionary and I'm gonna see a picture of you like this.
Whatever.
You are considered strong.
But I don't want it to be in no negative way.
But you know what? I think because people don't want us to have an opinion sometimes that's what it benefits people for when you're going to be strong. It's okay to be strong right here, but then it's not okay to be strong right here. That's what it is. Because, even in our job, when we work together, it was okay to be strong, but in some situations they like, okay, but that's just the way it is. Like they wanted you to be strong, but only for so much.
I don't know, y'all.
I'm telling the truth.
I'm trying to tell you. I do, but I'm saying it's a tough one for me because it's like, what's the line?
I think the line is where you become overpowering and controlling. I think that's where it is. I think once a person becomes controlling in that,
mean trying to be controlling of the other person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's where for me, I draw the line, even with friendships. You can be an empowering, want to empower other women, support other women, or people just in general. But once you try that controlling of other people comes through, that's where I draw the line. I'm like, that is.
But it's
very
funny because we all had the same look. And I know it's gonna be on there, we're like, I don't like, because that's the thing, because me and you were talking just the other day. And I was telling you something that, I was like, okay, so now how do we get to boom, 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 and boom?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
and you weren't offended. You weren't like, oh, I'm not talking to you or any of that. It was like, okay, yeah, I hear you.
But she
We gonna sit.
but Promise said key though. She said when it comes to bullying, Promise knew that you weren't trying to bully her. I'm sure. You know what I'm saying? Whatever conversation y'all was having, I'm sure that she knew. It's a line you can cross when you start trying to put people down. Like you can be strong, but people, I had somebody I talked to and then they just start, you can, when you're like a strong, you start using words that's hidden below the belt. You start saying stuff that is going to cut a little deep. That's when for me.
And that's people bidding to control. So I'm gonna make you feel bad about who you are.
Yes.
Because, because I'm letting you know that I want you to be different or whatever. And that's what I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what you're talking about. That's that attacking. And again, what people don't know, it's verbally abusive and it's gaslighting. That's what it is. I'm gonna make you think it's all about you and what you're not doing right when you just being you. So it's like, how do you rectify that and deal with it in a way that doesn't make you as a woman feel bad? Because that's what it comes down to. And I'll never forget. Oh, go ahead.
You just said gaslighting. So for those who don't know, can you explain a little bit more?
So it's
about
almost like, it's almost like it's an issue that's happening and you're trying to discuss it, but what you start to hear is all about you and where you're wrong and how you got it wrong and how you need to do things differently and how you're affecting the other person. And it can even be as deep as, and it's your fault in a sense, because it's very important that we see that. And because it's like two extremes when you think about conflict and different things like that. But and people who gaslight are typically, they can be very manipulative or abusive. People who engage in that behavior.
So, very narcissistic.
Yes. Which means basically, I don't know how something affects anybody until it affects me. That's when you're thinking about somebody who's narcissistic. They don't see how anything affects anything until it has an effect on them. That's a very simplified way to explain somebody who's narcissistic. So it ain't a problem until it affects them. So like, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, because it's so important that people know. And I hear so much from young women, dating is hard, dating is hard, dating is hard, and this and that, and people desire to be with someone, but it's so much fear out there because of the stigma women of color have. You either all the way to extreme here, and this is, I don't care what nobody say, they can correct me if I'm wrong, post some comments, but they either looking at you like you a hoe and stupid, or you so strong that you on the masculine end. That's what it's like. And I don't care what level of relationship, but that's what's portrayed out there in the media, if you think about it. They want to show what's kind of like the worst of the worst, and people want to pattern their lives after that. That's the one thing about this digital age and reality TV that becomes very difficult to deal with, is that the stigma out there and who's affected by the stigma for the most part. And if you think about most of these reality TV shows, the most popular ones are the ones that feature a lot of women who have a lot of drama. Think about that.
Yeah.
Because I think about too, like when we were all waiting for the vice president's debate before they were elected, right? The feedback was like, oh, well, she was like very soft on that, and she was this and was that. And I remember a reporter saying, well, she couldn't come out like the angry Black woman. So it was like, even in her challenging the position of what she was trying to go for, that was brought up. that she had to be very careful what she said because she didn't want to come out like the angry Black woman. And I'm like, wow, it's all around us.
So thank you guys for joining us for yet another episode of Woman Talk, where we keep it real. If you guys have been following us, you guys already know how we talk about things. Sometimes we will share even our own stories where we've had, situations between ourselves and how we got through that, because we keep it real. This is a sisterhood. It's important to keep that sisterhood. Check your circle, and try to not, as we empower each other and one another and support one another, to never belittle our men, to always lift them up, encourage them, especially if we have, our sons. Watch what we say about men, even if we're going through a situation in our relationship. But so just thank you again for, hanging out with us, just chilling with us, following our page and share it with somebody. And if you guys have topics of things that you want to talk about, or something that's important, something that's going on, even in your neighborhood, hit us up and let's talk about it, because we're all about keeping it real.
And remember, don't suffer in silence.
Yes, you don't have to suffer in silence. We would just like to invite you in on our podcast, where we're going to talk about some things. So get your tissues ready. It's going to be deep, but it's going to be real. So we invite you to just sit in with us and share our experiences. Share your experiences with us, and we'll share ours with you.